Greetings, fam, and welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, edification, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your brother, your host, and your friend, Rashid. I want to thank all of you for joining me on another edition of this platform called the Red Pill Diaries. And our show today is called Live West Asian Crisis on Knife's Edge. Now, before we get into it, everybody, it doesn't cost you anything. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And if you have comments. It doesn't cost you anything for that. Even throughout the show, if we have a disagreement on certain things, let's be agreeable to disagree without acting savage. We have the proper education. And so we want to present ourselves to the world as we are, and we are not savages. So let's do that. The best way to come to some type of productive solution to problems is to get feedbacks from all sides, to analyze everything that has been put over, and then come to a rational and logical and informed conclusion. So that's what we're doing. Even if you don't like it, hit the like button. It's not going to kill you. Subscribe. It's not going to kill you. Spread the word. It's not going to kill you. In fact, it may enhance you and bless you in multiple ways. Now let's get to it. Shout out to my guy, Perseverance Chameleon, in the building. Thank you for joining me again, my channel member. So let's get into something. So now we're hearing a lot of chatter saying that Iran may have conducted a nuclear explosion, a nuclear test or whatever like that. I'm not going to really get into that because I have not talked to enough people behind the scenes to tell me what's going on. I just saw that, and I'm not the type of person that continue to talk on a lot of things that I have little to no information about, just to hear myself talk. That's not what I do. But I want to say this: the Western media is outrageous. They say that Israel must respond to Iran's attack, as if Iran just attacked Israel out of the blue. Do you see the madness in the script writers? Do you see the madness in the propaganda machine? Do you see the madness in the officials in the United States? This is why I got a lot of flack. Like, as long as I was destroying Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, as long as I was destroying them, everybody was fine. But when I told you that there would be little to no change with Trump, because so many people, like, do you remember when Obama came on the scene and he put so much hope in certain people who had not had any hope in the system? The same can be said of Donald Trump. And I keep telling you that these guys are the same coins. It's just different sides. Okay. And now we have proof of it, because all we have to do is look at his term as president. As I told everybody, look at the policies initiated by Barack Obama. He initiated some of the most detrimental policies for Black America, period. And now I'm telling you to look at the policies of Donald Trump. People say, well, there was no wars started. That is an outright lie. Tell me, if I go to a country, or if I invite a person to a third party country so that we can do some negotiating, so that we both can tackle a problem that is bothering both of us. And immediately upon his arrival, I use a drone and assassinate him, and he is the second most powerful and influential person in the said country that he came from. Is that not an act of war? I'm asking everybody, because we have to call an ace and a spade, and we have to lay everything out as it is and not how we would like it to be. I'm apolitical, so I don't give a flip on either side, because the system is corrupt to the very core. Okay? But I will tell the people, and I will offend people, because I tell the truth. And sometimes it's good to be offended. That gets you on your P's and Q's. That gets you on your toes. That gets you going and doing some of your own exploration and your own studies. That's good. That makes that gray matter up their work. Okay. Now, let me see something real quick. Let me go to something. It was something that I wanted to bring to your attention as we're talking about this situation. So they were talking about the attack. Israel must respond to Iran's attack. Iran's attack. Ha, listen to this again. Iran's attack. Now, when you put it like that, for nobody that is for people that don't focus on politics every day or geopolitics every day, it will look as if Iran was a belligerent, irresponsible neighbor out to attack and kill people of Israel or occupied Palestine. But when we look at it in its true light, we can say, okay, what prompted this response? Because that's what it was, a response from Iran. What prompted it? Was it the decades-long killing of academics, of professors, of military officials, of politicians, of guests, of the sabotage of infrastructure in Iran by Israel? Was it the constant bombing of Palestinians, the constant brutality against Palestinians, the flagrant violation of international law? Because all of these are triggers. Nobody talks about this. Everybody says that Israel has a right to defend itself, as if nobody else has that same right. Remember, the right to defend yourself is an inherent right that is not predicated on which side of the world or which ally you are allied with. It is a God-given prerogative of each and every person that comes into this world. America can't guarantee you that right. The NATO can't guarantee you that right. God gives you that right, because the first law and the most meaningful law in creation is the law of self-preservation. That's something that we all should understand. So when America and the West talks about Israel has the right to defend itself, one has to ask, why are they saying that, and who attacked Israel, and why was there an attack on Israel? See, all of that gets pushed out and left to the side, but not here. Shout out to everybody that's watching on Rumble, Odyssey, what is it? Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, Locals, and BitChute, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So, and did I say Odyssey and Odyssey also? So listen, why is it that Israel has the inherent right to respond and has a right to defend itself, but Iran does not have that right? The Palestinians does not have that right. Now, I'm not a lawyer for either side, but if one were to just look at the laws, the so-called, what America says she Trump is around the world, international law, Israel and in the West have been in violation of international law, specifically and especially when it comes to the domestic capacity here in America. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, the United Nations said that America's treatment of her ex-slaves was tantamount to genocide. Purposeful genocide and crimes against humanity. Nobody said anything about that. But if we go over to the Palestinians, law after law that was passed, it's just flaunted by the West. They sanction Iran for something. They sanction Russia for something. They sanction any nation that bucks up against them, and yet they give Israel a pass. When Israel bombed the consulate of Iran, which is an act of war, when Israel bombed the consulate of Iran, France, Germany, the United States, Great Britain, and other European nations went to the UN to threaten, to sanction, and wage war against Iran if Iran responded for the act of war that was put upon it by Israel. Only in Bizarro world is that rational. Only in Bizarro world, where the victim gets threatened by the police for being the victim. I want you to think about this. Because I'm the king of analogies. I want you to think about this. What if a man or a woman was raped and in the process of being raped again, or being brutalized or beat down, okay? And the police comes to the scene. And instead of the police apprehending and arresting the culprit, the violent attacker, they arrest the one that has already been mauled, beaten, and raped. And then they beat that person and threaten to incarcerate that person for reporting about the rape and the beating. How long do you think that the law enforcement would actually be a viable profession if that was the case in the United States? Huh? Well, that's essentially what the West does. They violate everybody's territorial integrity. They violate everybody's rights. And then they spit in their face by going to the UN and then blaming the victim for being victimized. It's Iran's fault that it struck Israel after Israel committed an act of war against Iran in Syria. It's Iran's fault that Iran struck Israel after Israel assassinated multiple generals and colonels and their staff that were employed by the IRGC, which is the forces of Iran. It's Iran's fault that Iran responded and attacked Israel after Israel assassinated an invited guest who was at the inauguration of the new Iranian president on Iranian soil in the capital of Iran next to the presidential palace. It's Iran's fault, and they are violent, and they're violating. Man, if you don't stop this bizarro, see this Orwellian world of news. This is Orwellian to the core. Listen, Perseverance says, I believe that Israelis don't understand that there are other people in the world except for them. They don't care. They don't care. This is what I'm telling you. This is that exceptional mind. Listen, in the West, they have that very thought. It's at the top and it trickles down to everybody. That's why everybody says, God bless America, as if to exclude everybody else. Why would God bless some people that continue to break international law, continue to masquerade as a beacon of light while stealing and pillaging and robbing and occupying and bombing other people? Do you know that it's blasphemy to God to ask him to bless the very people who are keeping the world destabilized? It wasn't Iran that, according to the new report that came out, that since 9/11, it wasn't Iran that killed over 5 million people and left 10 million people, at least 10 million people homeless. It was America. It is not Iran that bombed the Gaza Strip, which is only 20 miles by 20 miles big. I think the size of Manhattan in New York. Bombed and displaced millions of people and have killed and wounded over 100,000, according to the UN estimates. It wasn't Iran that did that. So you say God bless Israel and God bless America when this is going on by Israel in America? Don't you know that you're spitting in God's face? Huh? That exceptional mind. America can commit any crime, and then when somebody strikes back, they're insurgents, they're terrorists, they're extremists, they're Islamists, right? And at the strike of anything that's on American soil, Americans can't take it. Oh, no, they violated. We got to go bomb them. But what about the decades of violating their territory, doing them, killing? They may have killed, and I'm not justifying this. I'm just giving you examples. Say, for instance, they killed 10 people or 100 people, which God forbid is a great loss, period. But think about the bombings of the weddings and the schools and the infrastructure in those nations. They don't have that right to feel angry, to feel hurt, to want to strike out, to strike back. Only America has that right. Only Israel has that right. Only the UK has that right. Only NATO nations have that right. America right now is demanding Russia pull out of its Slavic brothers' land, which they're one and the same, the Ukrainians and some of the Russians, right? Which borders Russia. It doesn't border America. It doesn't border France. It doesn't border Great Britain. It borders Russia. They don't have Slavic ties to the U.S., to Canada, to the UK and to France. They have it to Russia. 9,000 miles away, and America is demanding that Russia pull out of former Russian territories. She's not talking about America pulling out former Soviet territories like Romania and and Lithuania. America's not talking about pulling out of former Soviet territories. She's talking about and demanding Russia pull out of former Russian territories, all while occupying illegally, I might add, 1/3 of Syria. Bizarro world, right? Bizarro world. See, what I like to get a point across to everybody is this. I don't care if it's palatable to you. I don't care if it's unpalatable to you. I'm gonna drop the truth. Now it's up to you to do whatever you want to do with it. Okay? You can be mad, you can get pissed off, but it's better than being pissed on. Okay? I am just going to deliver the truth as it is, and I'm going to give you examples of the hypocrisy, the outrageousness of the policies that are enacted, and nobody seems to be able to decipher this. Nobody seems to think about this. Nobody seems to put this in their head and just ponder over. How is it that the Taliban are terrorists and insurgents in Afghanistan? How is it that Syrians and the Syrian government are terrorists and insurgents in Syria? How is it that the Iraqis are insurgents and terrorists in Iraq? But America, the Great Britain, and the people who are not from that area are freedom fighters. Make me understand that. Huh? Make me understand it. America is fighting for freedom in Somalia. She won't even fight for freedom and justice in her own borders with some of the illegal prosecutions of everybody, black, brown, red, yellow, purple, green, polka dot, any color. She won't even fight for justice there. It was a black guy that just was put to death of, what was it, last week? Listen to me, in Missouri. The federal government did not intervene. The prosecutor who prosecuted his case went to the governor of Missouri and said, hey, listen, this guy's innocent. We made a mistake. We made a mistake. We had him locked up for all these years. We made a mistake, and we found a whole bunch of evidence which exonerates this guy. And his story is matching the evidence that we finally came up with. You know what the governor of Missouri told him? I don't care. So they took it to the Missouri Supreme Court. Guess what the Missouri Supreme Court says? What did the governor ask you? I'm going to say to you, he doesn't care. We don't care either. They knew he was innocent and put him to death. So you'll fight in Syria for freedom over there, in Iraq for freedom over there. You'll fight for it in Ukraine. But the people in your own country, you ignore. You didn't even come to aid this man who lost his life because some people were corrupt as hell. Man, stop this. Stop it. Stop. See, I'm going to call it out. You can like it, dislike it, I don't care. How in the hell can America talk about the security of Ukraine and securing her borders? Look at her own borders. Huh? Think about the aid she just gave to Israel. I keep telling you, they spit in the face of the average person because they think they can get away with it. They don't respect your intellect. The people who were affected by that storm Helen, I think that's the name of it. Right? Over 200 and some people dead, a lot missing. The destruction is enormous. There'll be billions and billions of dollars needed to help reconstruct, and the people need food, they need temporary housing, they need aid. FEMA says we're running out of money this month. We won't have any more money after this month. Right after, just a few days after, the United States government found $8.9 billion or something like that to give Israel again. Tell me, how is that looking out for the security of the nation? I'm asking. Tell me, how is that respecting the very people that you are elected to govern? Tell me, how is that ensuring of the democracy and freedom? Tell me that. Tell me. While the masses of the people at home go hungry, homeless, and they're suffering, especially those in storm-hit areas, with infrastructure crumbling and collapsing, you feel the need to promote a war of choice on the border of Russia to try to weaken it. All while your infrastructure is crumbling, homelessness has exploded, hunger is out of control, unemployment is rising, there are bankruptcies every day of the week by big corporations and big chain stores, and you are funding the entire Ukrainian budget, the retirements, the pensions, the salaries. You don't see fit to help the people. If you don't help anybody else, help the people who have been hit hard by the natural disasters. Huh? You can't find 2 pennies for that, but you can always appropriate more money for weapons development and wars, color revolutions, and bribing world leaders. How is that a sustainable policy? I'm asking this, nobody does. How is that sustainable? My mom used to tell me the best investment is in yourself, right? The best investment is in yourself. When you can't help nobody else unless you get you right. Nobody else. So all while trying to dictate what Taiwan should do, the Philippines should do, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, CAR, Chad, all of these nations, all down in South America too, we're trying to demand what Brazil does, Argentina does, Venezuela does, Peru does. At home, it's a cesspool of violence, lawlessness, hatred, right? You have everybody at each other's throat. Everybody's blaming everybody for everything. That's not a symptom of decline, huh? That's not one of the symptoms of total and utter decline. You can borrow money from China. You can borrow money from African nations, because listen, don't let it get twisted. America's funding comes from these very small nations in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. That keeps it going. Nobody talks about that. And then she goes and destabilizes those nations and then asks them to buy some of her bonds to keep her afloat. How is that sustainable? I'm asking people. How is that sustainable? And if for those of you who think that things will be different under Trump, from what's his name, Kamala, the magician Harris, because that's what she is. She's a magician. Magicians are liars. They make things appear the way they're not. That is altering reality, right? That's what liars do. They alter what? The truth. Is that not right? They do it for an effect, right? And that's what Kamala and Trump does. I'm going to play something for y'all, and I'm going to come back to the comments. I want to play something for you guys, okay? Now, the rhetoric that we continue to hear is Israel has the right to do X. Israel has the right to do this. Israel has the right to do that. The Palestinians don't have that right. The Syrians don't have that right. The Turks don't have that right. The Iraqis don't have that right. The Iranians don't have that right. Burkina Faso doesn't have it. All of these, they don't have that inherent right that America has shrined into her moves, her allies' moves, and Israel's moves, right? They don't have that. So it's all about Israel. You heard Kamala Harris when she talked about it. We will support Israel without a doubt. We'll be X, Y, and Z. So for the whole world that's looking back and they're seeing 100,000 people dead and wounded, over 100,000 people dead and wounded, right? This is from the UN's estimate now. This is not from Rashid, because I'm not over there, so I don't know. 100,000, at least 100,000, over 100,000 wounded and dead in the Gaza Strip. And now the death and destruction has spread to the West Bank. The death and destruction has spread also back into the Syrian Arab Republic. The death and destruction has spread all across Lebanon. Who are the main culprits in this in math when you want to come to a solution? Because now we're talking mathematics, all right? Mathematics is applicable on any scale. So now let's look at mathematics. You take your, you want to find that common denominator. Why? Because if you can find that common denominator, you can do X, Y, and Z in math. But if you don't know the common denominator, your solutions will always turn out wrong, right? So now let's look at Syria. What are the common denominators in Syria that are in Lebanon, that are in the West Bank, that are in Gaza, that is trying to wage war with Iran, that is destabilizing Iraq, that is occupying Jordan, that is over in Arabia, that is in Qatar, that's in the United Arab Emirates, that's in all of North Africa, that has bases down in Central America. Let's see what's the common denominator, okay? America. What else? Israel. What else? The UK. Right? We have France. We have all of the former colonial powers, but specifically and especially the US, the UK, and Israel. Right? So when we're looking at, you don't even have to be a scientist on this. If everywhere you look, you see these people here. If there's a robbery over there and those people were seeing there, and there's a rape over there and those people were seeing there, and there's a bombing over there and those people were seeing there, and if there's a robbery over here and those people were seeing there, and if you look over here and there's some chaos going over there, you don't have to be a detective. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to be a scientist to come to the conclusion that they have some culpability in these things, because at every move, when there's a rape, robbery, death, destruction, vandalism, we see them, right? Common sense tells us that they are the leading suspects into the chaos, right? Isn't that how detectives do their work? And afterwards, they do motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most. We see the motive. We see them took the opportunity, and we see that they thought that they would be the beneficiaries of the chaos across the world. That's why the CIA, the Mossad, and the MI6 has a motto: order out of chaos. And what do we see everywhere? Them promoting chaos. And then when we look around, who's present? The very people who are talking peace, right? I want anybody in the chat. Tell me where I've lied at. Tell me where I've lied or embellished anything at. And if I have not lied to you or embellished anything, then maybe you should give me a little weight. Sit back and say, hey, this guy's making real good points here. So for those of you who thought that it would be a little different, if you elect or select Donald Trump, right, over Kamala, and you know how I feel about those Democratic candidates and stuff. Man, Joe Biden is crazy. I can't even say it because I don't want to be vulgar. And not running a close second is her. All right. So nobody can say I'm this, because I don't care one way or the other when it comes to that. Excuse me, but I want you to understand. Listen, remember Kamala says, we will stand with Israel, and Israel has the right to defend itself, and we will continue arming Israel, right? Show me where there's any difference than what Trump has said. The only difference is that Trump is talking about being more belligerent about it. So listen to this.
I listened to Biden yesterday. You know, since I went under the wing, I used to go under the wing of the aircraft. Nobody ever did that before. I did. All of a sudden, Biden started, but he only takes like a half a question. Usually can't answer it. But they asked him, "What do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran?" And he goes, "As long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff." That's the thing you want to hit, right? I said, I think he's got that one wrong. Isn't that what you're supposed to hit? I mean, it's the biggest risk we have. Nuclear weapons, the power of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt the entire military, jets, everything. I built it, including nuclear, and I hated to build the nuclear, but I got to know firsthand the power of that stuff, and I'll tell you what, we have to be totally prepared. We have to be absolutely prepared. But when they asked him that question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later. And that's what they should. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. But we'll find out whatever their plans are. But great question. Thank you very much.
So what did he say? If you're going to hit them, hit the nuclear stuff. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. You hit the nuclear stuff. think about the contamination. You can't just hit nuclear stuff and it's decontaminated in a year or so. Some of this stuff takes thousands of years to decontaminate. This man says hit the nuclear stuff and worry about everything else. Do you know nuclear radiation was spread across West Asia, which is North Africa and what the West calls the Middle East? Do you know that it could also spread, according to the weather patterns, to Europe? Do you know that it could also spread to Asia proper or into the area of China or Russia? And if Iran was to be hit like that, under international law, and those radiation clouds violate Russia or Chinese border, guess what? That's a nuclear strike on China or Russia. See, they don't think about this. They just run their mouths. How is it so important to get rid of? You don't want Iran to have one, but you got a nuclear arsenal of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 of them. That's exceptionalism. Israel can have 200 of them, but Iran can't have one. You know why they don't want Iran to have one? And I'm not taking up for nobody, but I'm just telling you the truth. You know why they don't want Iran to have one? Because if Iran has one, you can't blackmail them. You can't cower them. You can't force them to their knees. Look, we have an example in North Korea. America had been talking all that bluster. North Korea got nuclear capabilities. What happened? Huh? Have they struck North Korea? Have they overthrown it? Have they invaded it since it acquired nuclear weapons? Now let's look at nations that had the opportunity to, and yet reneged on their chance to get it. What happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq? Huh? America is still occupying them. After Saddam was verified not to have any more chemical or nuclear weapons, what happened? Boom, goes the dynamite. Look at what happened in Syria. After the Syrian Arab Republic was verified to have given up all of its chemical and biological weapons and any steps or whatever on nuclear capabilities. What happened? The United States bombed them, sent terrorists in, and now they occupy a third of them. Let's look at Libya. Muammar Gaddafi was about 1 or 2 steps away from having the bomb. He let Britain entice him. He let America entice him to come back into the Western fold, and we'll open up your economy. We'll give you this. We'll do that, and we'll do that. So what he did, he became lax on his military because he had a military deal with Russia where he was going to buy a whole bunch of weapons and air defense systems. But when America enticed him, and when Britain enticed him, he pushed that to the back burner. And as soon as it was verified, listen, they wanted to negotiate and they wanted to talk. But as soon as the IEA verified that he no longer had those components, guess what happened? What did they say? We don't want to talk. There's only one option. He must stand down or else there's war. Is that not what they did? I'm asking. Am I lying? Tell me if I'm lying. Huh? So you're mad that anybody helps me out, or North Korea is helping Russia out, China is helping Russia out. You openly say that you're only helping Ukraine out. Britain openly states that she's helping Ukraine out. NATO often says that they're arming Ukraine because they don't want Russia to be victorious. So it's okay for you to give them guns and artillery, missiles, radar, real-time intelligence, right? And even mercenaries. But you don't want me to give my cousin or my brother or my sister a slingshot to defend themselves against you? That is the mind of lunatics. I'm telling you this now. The law applies to thee, but not to me. If you do what I do, you have violated international law. You are provoking everything, and you are escalating. When we look at the situation and the knife's edge that the entire West Asian region stands on, who is the main culprit? Who are the main culprits? Who pulled out of the JCPOA? Matter of fact, let's go to it. Now that I'm talking about it, you see how God works. I'm talking about it. I got it on my doggone dashboard. Come to think about it, wasn't even going this way with this. But let's go to it. Okay. We're going to go through a scenario. I'm going to play a few clips back to back to back, okay? This is going to involve, some people may get butthurt, okay? All right? But this is going to involve Donald Trump, all right? It's going to involve Donald Trump. Then we're going to come back to that clip that I played with Donald Trump saying hidden the nuclear sites, okay? And then I'm going to give you a clip of an interview I did 3 years ago, with Professor Kevin Barrett, the co-founder of Scholars for 911 Truth, okay? I've done multiple interviews with him on Patreon. You can go to Patreon and see it, and some on here. I've gotten kicked off YouTube twice for Kevin Barrett. I've gotten kicked off YouTube 3 times for Scott Bennett. I've gotten kicked off YouTube 3 times for the other co-founder for Scholars for 911 Truth, which is Jim Fetzer. So I've interviewed them all. Okay, a lot of their content is over on Patreon. Go check it out. I'm serious. But I want you to see what led us up to this moment where we're at. So we're going to first go to Kerry, okay, John Kerry, and we're going to see what he's telling these people at this think tanker that I think was put on by Reuters. Reuters is a British news organization or propaganda machine, and he is talking to his colleagues. And this is what he has something very important to talk about the dollar losing its position in the world, and how the JCPOA, that agreement, would help keep the dollar relevant and also keep Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, okay? Now remember, Bibi Netanyahu and every other illegal entity of occupied Palestine has been espousing for decades upon decades that Iran is only 4 months away from a nuclear weapon. Iran is only 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon, right? They were saying that in the 1990s, in the early 80s, early 2000s. We're 2024, right? That's a long 4 weeks, isn't it? That's a long 4 days, isn't it? I want you to listen to what Mr. Kerry has to say about this. See, we try to empower you with truth, not just me talking. We're going to give you them talking, okay? Mr. Kerry has this to say. Pay close attention.
Speaking to journalists in New York, Secretary of State John Kerry insisted no better deal could have been reached with Iran, saying Tehran had already been, quote, chasing a nuclear weapon as recently as 2003.
When people say, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what happens in year 15 or 20, they may become a nuclear threshold nation. Folks, they are a nuclear threshold nation today. They became that. And they became that while we had a policy of no enrichment.
Kerry warned the failure by Congress to approve the deal could lead to a nuclear Iran, but approval would mean security for the future.
Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, never pursue it, and never engage in any of the weaponization activities that would allow you to do it.
However, Republican lawmakers and some prominent Democrats say the deal is weak and don't believe it would prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon after the accord expires. Kerry also circulated a letter in support of the plan, written by 29 physicists, as evidence of the deal's non-proliferation potential. The letter was addressed to President Obama and has been published by numerous news outlets. Opponents warn that lifting the sanctions on Iran will strengthen it by boosting its economy. But Kerry told the journalists that reneging on the deal would embolden Iran and gravely limit international support for any necessary military action. Daniela Schreier, VOA News, New York.
John Kerry at the time was Secretary of State. Remember, see, I'm gonna bring some up to y'all. I'm gonna piss a couple people off. Okay. Hold on, I'm getting wipes. Some of my water, cold water is on my desk, and I'm trying to get it up real quick. So while I'm talking to y'all, do you remember? See, because there was a lot of uproar about Stop the Steal. Remember, I'm apolitical, so I don't care one way or the other. But I do call an ace and a spade a spade. Now, they were saying stop the steal, and you can't really say if the election was tampered with on YouTube because you'll get banned. All right. So I can say that a lot of people had a good idea, okay, on that situation. Do I believe it? I can't say it on YouTube, but when we cut this off and we go to the other platforms, I'll say it. But nobody talked about when John Kerry was running for president and there was a controversy about Ohio. So it didn't just start with Trump. I'm just letting people know this didn't just start with Trump. Oh, remember when Al Gore, the hanging chairs in Florida? Remember that? So the corruption of the system has been seen. It metastasized when it came to Trump because Trump had touched a line of thinking in some of Americans, and they were saying that we're not going to let this happen. But it happened multiple times. There was even a write-up saying that John Kennedy had stolen the election from Richard Nixon. There was even a write-up about that. Go look at it. If you think I'm lying, you think Google it. All right? I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that there was a write-up on it. Now, people are enraged thinking that this just happened with Trump. Nah, player. Like they say on the street, nah, player. No. What happened is it happened to you, and then it enraged you. But when it happened to somebody else, you weren't that much enraged. All right? This is what I'm saying. So I'm going to call it out like this. Now, Mr. Kerry says that it was already bubbling out there with the nations that they were talking to, that they were tired of American dictates, her sanctions, and her policies, and they were ready to vote on the dollar. And this JCPOA was the way to keep them from bolting from the dollar. And he said, just imagine, we get all of these nations in this deal, right? And we tell them that we're going to honor our agreement. And I'm paraphrasing. But if you look at the longer interview of this was only a minute something, but he says pretty much what I'm saying in the longer interview. He says, and then we tell them, listen, we're going to pull up out of the deal and we're going to sanction every one of you that stays in the deal and that honors the deal. He said, my friend, this is a recipe for the dollar to quickly cease to be in the world's reserve currency. He said that. I'm not lying. I'm not embellishing anything. That is what he said. Now look at this. Remember what he said, my friend. If we pull out of this deal that we had all these people, we brought them in and say, listen, we're going to honor our agreement. You guys honor it, blah, 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 blah. You be guaranteed. And then if we pull out and then threaten the very nation that we had to come into the deal, this, my dear, is a recipe for the dollar to cease being the world reserve currency. Now, I want you to look at this. Let's see who pulled us out of that deal.
The Iran deal is defective at its core. If we do nothing, we know exactly what will happen. In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapons. At the heart of the Iran deal was a giant fiction that a murderous regime desired only a peaceful nuclear energy program. Therefore, I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. We will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
So now we're going to revisit what John Kerry said. And it's ironic that this man who killed the second most powerful man in Iran says he murdered him. He invited, most people don't understand, under him, he requested Soleimani come because Soleimani had, people don't know this, he had helped the United States multiple times in the Middle East in fighting certain things. So when the U.S. requested for Soleimani, the one they're vilifying right now, when they requested for him to come to Iraq and a third state so that they can negotiate and work together on killing ISIS and bringing down the ISIS terror unit. Immediately when he landed and he got in his car, and somebody alerted the people that there was a certain car in this line of cars that had him in it, and the U.S. bombed him from drones, and it was under the man who said that Iran is a murderous regime. That man right there. See what I'm saying? When you're living in glass houses, I guarantee you should not be throwing boulders, rocks, and stones. Okay? Anybody who listens to my show know that I am not pro this or pro that. I'm pro truth. All right. And I'm going to tell it like it is. Remember, he says that he would not let the world's greatest state sponsor of terrorism get the world's most dangerous weapon. Who's been at war their whole history? Okay. Hold on before I play the next clip. Okay. All right. Hold on 1 second. All right. There we go. Now, this was recorded, 7 years ago. So whatever I'm telling you, you add 7 years to it, okay? According to a U.S. publication, somebody says, this morning I discovered an interesting statistic. America has been at war 93% of the time, 222 years out of 239 years since 1776. The U.S. has only been at peace for less than 20 years total since its birth. And then you add 7 more years to it. So out of 246 years, the United States has been at war for 229 years. And Iran is the greatest terrorist state in the world. Man, if you don't stop this madness, now I just put in the U.S. has been at war for most of its history. That's what comes up. Go Google it. Go Google this stuff. So now, Mr. Kerry says to us, what? Let's go. We got to go back and play that clip that he says, because remember what Mr. Trump says. I am taking us out of that deal, right? What did Kerry want everybody?
Speaking to journalists in New York, Secretary of State John Kerry insisted no better deal could have been reached with Iran, saying Tehran had already been, quote, chasing a nuclear weapon as recently as 2003.
When people say, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what happens in year 15 or 20, they may become a nuclear threshold nation. Folks, they are a nuclear threshold nation today. They became that. And they became that while we had a policy of no enrichment.
Kerry warned the failure by Congress to approve the deal could lead to a nuclear Iran, but approval would mean security for the future.
Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, never pursue it, and never engage in any of the weaponization activities that would allow you to do it.
However, Republican lawmakers and some prominent Democrats say the deal is weak and don't believe it would prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon after the accord expires. Kerry also circulated a letter in support of the plan, written by 29 physicists, as evidence of the deal's non-proliferation potential. The letter was addressed to President Obama and has been published by numerous news outlets. Opponents warn that lifting the sanctions on Iran will strengthen it by boosting its economy. But Kerry told the journalists that reneging on the deal would embolden Iran and gravely limit international support for any necessary military action. Daniela Schreier, VOA News, New York.
After all those warnings, what happened? Again, we'll see what happens.
The Iran deal is defective at its core. If we do nothing, we know exactly what will happen. In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapon. At the heart of the Iran deal was a giant fiction that a murderous regime desired only a peaceful nuclear energy program. Therefore, I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. We will not allow a regime the chance.
Now, that's the part we needed to hear. He took the U.S. off that deal, right? Remember the warnings that if we leave the deal, then threaten the nations who came to the deal under our pressure, then we would be delegitimizing our position, and then they would be ready to bolt from the dollar. What's happening right now? Huh? Matter of fact, you don't believe me? Let's listen.
Look, it goes beyond these things. Just today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
Now, this drive toward de-dollarization that we see led by countries like China and Brazil is angering the United States. And a clear example of this was the neoconservative Republican Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. When he heard about the news of China and Brazil de-dollarizing their trade and using their local currencies, Marco Rubio was furious. And on Fox News, he complained that if countries drop the dollar, the U.S. will no longer be able to sanction them. That's a very revealing quote because it's really a U.S. official admitting that by maintaining the dominance of the US dollar around the world, the United States is able to weaponize its currency and turn it into a geopolitical tool to attack any country that carries out policies that Washington doesn't like. So the US has imposed sanctions on countries that represent 1/4 of the global population, including China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, Syria. There are so many people living under brutal sanctions that prevent them from doing trade, prevent them from exporting, that cause massive economic problems and inflation at home and a lack of certain goods, a lack of medicines and technology. So this explains why countries around the world are looking for alternatives to the US dollar.
So we heard that, right? You see how it's all falling in line. John Kerry gave you a prophetic saying of what would happen because he had already talked to the people and trying to coerce them into accepting the JCPOA, the best deal he said that could have been negotiated. Iran gave up so much because they didn't have to show the world that they were not after nuclear weapons, right? Who pulled them out of the deal? Now, what is the ramification of that? What John Kerry said, and if you think I'm lying, Google this. I put this in. Let's go back for a second. I put this into the search engine. John Kerry said if the U.S. pulls out of the JCPOA, nations will leave the dollar. That's what I put in. Put it in the Google engine, and the first thing that comes up is the Reuters article. And the title of the article, it was published in August 11, 2015. How many? That's 9 years ago? 9 years ago. So he warned 9 years ago of the ramification of pulling out of the JCPOA. And look at where we are right now. Do I like Kerry? I think he's a scumbag. But when truth is spoken, you have to acknowledge it regardless of who speaks it. Truth is truth, and it stands on its own. So let's go into the first paragraph of this article here that I just pulled out of the air while I'm talking to you guys. So in the article, it says, New York Reuters. That's the department in New York, okay? It says, this is John Kerry. If the United States walks away from the nuclear deal with Iran and demands that its allies comply with U.S. sanctions, a loss of confidence in U.S. leadership could threaten the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency, the top U.S. diplomat said on Tuesday. And they quote him saying this exactly. If we turn around and nix the deal and then tell them you're going to have to obey our rules and sanctions anyway, that is a recipe very quickly for the American dollar to cease to be the reserve currency of the world. That's right here. I didn't make anything up. I'm giving you all of the necessary tools for you to look at it yourself. I gave you the exact wording that I put in the search engine. The exact article, date, month, year. The news organization, right? Now I want to go to something. I want to show you something. All right? We're going to read part of that again. All right? We're going to read that again. The dollar. He says, if the United States walks away from the nuclear deal with Iran and demands that its allies comply with U.S. sanctions, a loss of confidence in U.S. leadership could threaten the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency, the top U.S. diplomat said on Tuesday. Quote, if we turn around and nix the deal, you know, the deal that Trump nixed, and then tell them you're going to have to obey our rules and our sanctions anyway. Isn't that what Joe Biden and Trump did? All right. That is a recipe very quickly, not just here, but very quickly. So we see everything speeding up, the wars and everything else. Everything is speeding up because America knows that our time is limited because the dollar is in decline, which means that Britain's time is limited because the dollar and the pound are tied together. The dollar was anchored by gold and the pound was anchored by silver. When the world went off the gold and silver standard, the financial doom of England and America was sealed. So listen to what it says. That is a recipe very quickly for the American dollar to cease to be the world reserve currency, the reserve currency of the world. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said at a Reuters newsmaker event. So he was talking to the journalists and the politicians and all of these people from think tanks. And he was warning them, hey, we just was able to bring these people on. They were doubtful of it, and they said that we wouldn't stick to it, but I promised them that we would stick to this. And he said there was rumblings behind the scene, meaning that they were talking behind the scene and said, listen, if this one doesn't stick, we're voting the dollar. Because if you don't honor that, you're not going to honor anything. Right? What happened after that? The U.S. was taken out of the dollar, and now you heard what geopolitical economic report, I believe that is geopolitical economic report or something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered it, but you heard what he reported. Okay. All right. That more nations are now bolting out of the dollar. That didn't happen by chance. That's why you have an uptick in violence, an uptick in terrorism, an uptick in militarism by the U.S., the U.K., Israel, because they're fighting for their economic and financial survival. All right. So let's go to something real quick, because it's a word John Kerry used in that statement that must be broken down, must be looked at, because when you understand this word, it gives more weight to what is trying to be conveyed to you all. John Kerry said, what? If we turn around and nix the deal and then tell them, talking about the people that they brought to the table, you're going to have to obey our rules and sanctions anyway, even though we broke the deal, even though we broke our word, even though we broke the contract. He says that is a recipe very quickly. Let's go to that word recipe. According to the dictionary, Google's dictionary, the word recipe is a noun. It means a set of instructions for preparing a particular dish, including a list of the ingredients required. So that dish that he was talking about preserving was what? Dollar hegemony. He said, if you don't add this, and if you take away this, and if you try to supplement this with that, that is what? A recipe very quickly for the American dollar to cease to be the reserve currency of the world. So they took America out of the JCPOA. They threatened the nations that if they did not obey the new sanctions that America illegally imposed upon Iran and third parties, then America would then turn and sanction them. And this became a playbook for what they tried to do with Russia and what they're trying to do with China and what they've done over in Venezuela and what they've done in Chad and Somalia and down there in Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali. And now the world is sitting back watching this. And they're understanding that America is not good for her word. That's why Vladimir Putin stated that America is agreement incapable. You cannot trust them to honor their agreements. Ask the Native Americans, ask the ex-slaves, ask those Irish, ask the Chinese who helped build a railroad. Huh? I'm telling you this. So we're at the precipice of all-out war. Some of you don't understand. You're saying, well, why is America allowing this? She has to. And I disagree with a lot of my colleagues when they think that Israel runs America. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. And I've been telling you guys this for the longest. I said that America feigns ignorance and feigns as if she's powerless to do this and do that. I said, but that's just for show. How many new shows, big shows are saying that now? Huh? How many? You see them all the time saying that. Listen, if I control the money, if I have the political clout, I don't care what you say, I run this. This is my house right here, right? If I ask my son to do X, Y, and Z and he doesn't want to do it, let the door hit you where the good Lord spit you. You understand? That's the way it is. In politics also. He who controls the purse strings controls the policy. Israel's economy is collapsing. If it were not for injections of money from the US, the UK, and the EU, it would have already imploded. You understand? And both England or the UK and the US need Israel there. What did Joe Biden say? If it wasn't an Israel there, we would have to invent one for America's interest. What is her interest there? To keep everybody destabilized so that I can come in and offer a solution. Listen to me good. This is an age-old colonial trick. If I come in and divide and see a grievance with that brother against that brother, and I amplify that disagreement, and then I come behind the scene and start them to fight, and give that one weapon and that one weapon, so they're at each other, and I've amplified those little small, minute divisions, then I can step in and offer an agreement. And if they sign up for my agreement, I rule both of them. That's what it is. And so she rules all of them. She steals the resources for pennies on the dollar. And so it's in her national interest, in England's national interest, in the European Union's national interest to continue this charade of terrorism. Because that's what it is. It's a charade. All these false flag terrorist activities going on, and out the blue, Allahu Akbar, just conveniently. Allahu Akbar, just conveniently, so that you can think it's Muslims. And you got all of this access to papers saying that, hey, CIA, MI6, the German special intelligence, the French special intelligence, not only armed and trained them, but helped formulate their doctrine. So hold on. How is that Islamic terrorism when these nations that claim to be Christian nations are the ones formulating the doctrine for them to follow? Talk back to me. And have you ever noticed that the very elements of terrorism, they're not striking, they go through Iraq, rampaging and screaming, Allahu Akbar. Allah, we're going to set up a caliphate, right? And they don't throw one stone, one stick, one leaf, one piece of paper from bubblegum over into occupied Palestine and Israel. But they can invade Syria, Iraq, on the verge of invade Iran, all Muslim nations, I might add, right? And how is it that they continue to get free reign when America has satellites? She can pinpoint pennies on the ground, but you can't pinpoint an entire 5-6 mile entourage of cars leaving from one area to another. Man, if you don't stop this foolishness, stop this. I was born at night, just not last night, okay? For real. So let's go to something else. So we just heard that, right? And we just heard the sanctions. And we just heard Mr. Trump talk about hitting Iran's nuclear facilities. I want to advance something to you all. I have a show. It's 3 years ago. I have a couple of them 3 years ago. I would invite all of you to go look at those shows. I'm with Professor Kevin Barrett on there. Go look at it. But I'm going to advance a little clip here for you all to check this out, okay? Pay close attention to this.
it's all staged.
So, why do you think that Trump supporters are so gung-ho for him, thinking that he's going to so-called drain the swamp and fight against the so-called system, when he has actually come up through the system and been one of his main beneficiaries and benefactors? And on top of that, I was F. William Engdahl said that Trump was a tool of the system, and I'm paraphrasing him. And if he had ever stepped out of line, he would never have gotten the position that he got, and they would have killed him immediately. So,
yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, he's right. Engdahl is right. And I don't know why people have fallen for Trump. It really puzzles me. Very smart people I know, comrades in the 9/11 truth movement, good people, have fallen for Trump. And my friend Jim Fetzer, he used to do False Flag Weekly News with me. And then he drank the Trump Kool-Aid and, really got out of control. And now he was replaced by Professor Anthony Hall of the University of Lethbridge. And now Tony's starting to get inebriated on that Trump Kool-Aid. So I don't know what's going on here. Trump is the idea that Trump is going to drain the swamp. Donald Trump, excuse me, he's the guy that was created by Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was one of the slimiest, most corrupt mafiosi in American history. Right. He ran New York for Meyer Lansky. He took orders from J. Edgar Hoover. Meyer Lansky, the mobster and Zionist, a very good friend of Israel, had dirty pictures of J. Edgar Hoover, who had dirty pictures of all the other powerful people in America. So Lansky issued orders to Hoover, and Hoover turned around and relayed those orders to various people in the big cities. And New York was Roy Cohn territory. And if Meyer Lansky and Hoover wanted to get rid of a politician, they would tell Cohn. And usually they would find a way to do it without killing the guy, but not always. So Cohn is a real sleazeball. He was a pedophile. He exploited little boys. He died of AIDS, of course. And Cohn is the man who created Donald Trump. Trump was a nobody, really, until Roy Cohn came along and made him a somebody and set him up. And so they put Trump in the hotel and gambling business. And gambling, of course, is money laundering. That's the way you make the majority of your money if you run a gambling operation, is through laundering money. People come in there with big stacks of money and they buy chips, and then they cash in their chips and they get the money, they walk out. Now they've got laundered money. So gambling is perfect for that. And hotels are also notorious for that. So Trump has essentially been an organized crime money launderer for his entire career. And then after he launders a whole bunch and stashes it away, he goes bankrupt and then he starts again. That's what he's done. That's what his job was before he became a reality TV host and then a reality TV host in the White House. This is the guy who's going to drain the swamp. He's owned by the Kosher Nostra. And look at Jared Kushner.
The Kosher Nostra. He's talking about those powerful people. You can't say what ethnicity they are, right? But he's owned by those. Now, in that interview there, it was not just talking about Trump. This is why I tell you all to go back and look at that. He talked about Biden, Obama. He went into their history. That's what he did. He studied them and he researched them and went into their history, all of them. This is what I'm telling you. It's a lot that you guys just don't know. And they take advantage of this. They like to exploit you. That's the way they do it. So again, I want to go back to something. Okay, give me a second. I want to go back to something. So we're finding that none of these people are for your interest. None of them. Absolutely none of them are for your interest. Matter of fact, let me see what Kali Bean said up here. He says, but it's not all Jews in Israel who feel this way. Just 80% of them. The Zionists plus the right wing, which oddly enough is not the same thing, although they overlap. Well, Kali, guess what? Not all Americans feel the same way, right? But Americans get blamed for the policy of the American government, right? And the people who are in power, who exercise power, are the ones directing those policies. Okay. Let's see. Flying Crocodile says Trump was and is a fool, but he's the best fool you have. That's a good point to make. Now listen, I told you guys that I am apolitical. I don't care if a frog gets into the White House, because we know that frog will not be able to hop outside of the powers that be. All right. So let me place this, because I hear people say the lesser of two evils, right? You're still dealing with evil. Nobody talks about that. Choosing the lesser of two evils is not going to bring about good. If it's evil, right? I'm on I think different ways. Everybody listen, my mind is on things that's like out. I mean, way past this stuff here. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, just pause for a second. Think the lesser of two evils is not offering you a choice of good. It's just offering you someone that does not have as much evil as the one over here, but it's still evil nonetheless, right? That's like giving a person a choice. You want this guy who's raped 55 women, or you want this guy that's raped 34 children? The lesser, which one you think is the worst crime? Then you go with the one with the least crime. But it's still a criminal, right? That's what I'm saying. Everybody here, do what he says. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. Vera says, shout out to Vera. Thank you for joining. And Vera, hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the channel, subscribe. We have good conversations over here, and we like to build together. Even if we don't always agree, we can be agreeable to disagree. Vera says, I think so as well. America fakes being powerless to do anything about Israel. It's America that wants control in West Asia and everywhere. Now, if this is not the case, then why did, because a lot of people think this started with Trump. A lot of people think this started with Biden. A lot of people think it started with Obama. No, not Clinton. No. If this is not their policy to dominate West Asia, then why would the National Security Advisor of Jimmy Carter come out with a book talking about how they need to separate Ukraine from Russia to prevent Russia from reemerging as a global superpower? What is the policy that they have enacted to try to break Ukraine off from Russia so that they can prevent Russia's rise as a great superpower, and then to finally decapitate the leadership, balkanize Russia, and siphon off the resources, right? He wrote this decades ago. What did he say? He who controls your Asia controls the global geopolitical order, right? What are they fighting for right now? Domination of Africa and Asia, right? Right? Aren't they doing that? Aren't they destabilizing what is called West Asia, which is North Africa, the Middle East area? And aren't they trying to penetrate into the heart of where Asia meets into Europe? Aren't they doing that? Why do you think NATO expanded all the way up to Russia's border? Huh? Why do you think America has bases in Japan on the opposite side of Russia? In Japan, the Philippines, and other areas on the opposite side of China? Why do you think America continues to put pressure on North Korea from South Korea so that she can bankrupt the regime, so that it can be chaos, and then she can send her minions up in there to secure the land area? And if North Korea collapse, China, Russia, India, and Pakistan will be completely surrounded. And that means that there's a high probability that America could pick off their nuclear arsenals. That is one reason why they're putting pressure in the Asia, African land masses. North Korea was found to have trillions of untapped and rare, because China controls 94% of the rare earths. North Korea has huge amounts of rare earths that's untapped. Gold, oil, gas, silver, all of this stuff, they mapped it out. And so if they can sanction North Korea where North Korea cannot tap its own resources, and then they can collapse the government of North Korea, the puppet regime in South can go in, take over, and America can push her borders right up, her bases right up to China and Russia. Because remember, North Korea borders both Russia and China. This is a strategic play for global hegemony and total world domination. And nobody talks about this. Why do you think she's pushing up in Azerbaijan? Most people say, yes, she's after Russia. she's after Russia. Yes, she is, but she's after Turkey too. See, Turkey has realized, and I have been saying that before they helped the U.S. and NATO put pressure on Syria, that they better watch out, because they think that America's really after Syria, but in reality, they're after Turkey. We had the coup take place, the attempted coup to take place, and now we're seeing that America's building up Greek infrastructure opposite Turkey. America is now trying to get Azerbaijan on side, right? As a counterweight to, I'm not Azerbaijan, but Armenia as a counterweight to Azerbaijan, and to usurp Russian influence in that region right there, and to also put pressure on Iran, because Armenia borders Iran also. She's fighting for survival. The UK is fighting for survival. Listen, this is not racist. This is reality. Europe has little to no resources, period. They came up with the greatest monetary scheme in the history of man and mankind, to put ink on paper, and to then give that paper a denomination of wealth, and then tell the people who have all the goods, your goods are worth X amount of pieces of this paper that we just added a number on. We will give you X amount of this paper for your commodities. Oh, okay, we'll give it to you. Yeah. They take the commodities back, refine them, and sell them back for that same paper, and leave those people in poverty. And when the nations get tired of it and say, hold on, we say that that is not enough money, we need X amount of money, then they sanction them and nullify whatever amount of wealth they have that is denominated in euros, pounds, or dollars. That is the biggest scam on the planet. Tell me if I'm lying. I'm asking, just tell me if I'm lying. That is the biggest scam ever. And then, look, check this out. When it comes to that monetary scam. And then they tell you, if you don't agree with it, that you're a dictator, a tyrant, a thug, and you're preventing the growth of your economies. When their economy is growing, is reliant upon the near free goods that they get from you. That's crazy, isn't it? Look what happened to Europe when they sanctioned Russia. Look at the state of the economy there now. Did you know in Niger, France was siphoning whatever they were mining. They were mining almost twice the amount, but only reporting a certain amount. They were using that to generate energy so that they could sell across Europe. They were making the money while the people of Niger was living in poverty. At the time, 90% of Niger did not have lights, when their resources accounted for over 60% of French electricity. How is that just? How is that fair? And it also was for other nations around, by taking off the uranium and taking out the gold and stuff and promising X amount of money. That is a scheme. That's a scam. Do you understand that? That is a scam. For me to give a denomination, I want you to, for a second, I want you to think for a second. See, I'll give you examples to make it more understandable to what I'm saying. All of us here right now, we hopefully we all have a power bill, right, or water bill or something. In the West, you know, they're going to charge you for water, for air, for everything. These people they are parasitic by nature. They will charge you for everything that God has given you for free. They even charge you for dirt. That shows you how parasitic they are. Charge you for air. I know in the city that I'm in, they charge $2 for air in your tire. $2 for something that you breathe. Right? So now they're even trying to outlaw people catching rainwater, as if they have the rights to rain or water. So look, say for instance, you pay a bill, and the power company says, hey, for this amount of electricity, you owe $400, and you must pay this by X amount of time, or we disconnect your lights. And you go to the power company and say, no, I don't agree with that amount of money. I think I should pay $25 a month for this, and I'm not going to pay $1 more. And so I go there when it's bill time to pay $20 or $25. Now, how many of you think that the power company will change my bill from $400 to $25? Why wouldn't they change it to that? Because they have a monopoly on the power, right? So why does the people that buy the resources get to dictate how much the resources cost? Because the power company won't let you do it to them. The water company won't let you do it to them. Go into Walmart and tell them, I want that bike right there. And Walmart has it in there for $300. And you say, I think the bike is worth $15. And then you take it to the counter to pay $15. See how far you get with that bike. See, this is what I'm telling you. This is a Ponzi scheme. All of this is Walt Disney. Because they know most people don't take the time to think, because they're too preoccupied with basketball, with sports, with the Kardashians, with madness. When the whole world is crumbling on them, crumbling around them. It is astonishing. Let's see. Flying Crocodile says, the U.S. has been behind half the terrorism of the world, Operation Gladio, since the end of World War II. Well, I'm going to take it a step further, Mr. Flying Crocodile. Out of the mouth of Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, he says the CIA is responsible for over 90% of all the global terrorism. So, and people do not, for one instance, disassociate Western intelligence agencies from the CIA. So when he says the CIA, he's talking about the BND of Germany. He's talking about French intelligence. He's talking about the MI6. He's talking about all of these as one cohesive unit, destabilizing the entire world for the West's benefit, to the detriment of 4/5 of the population of the planet Earth. That's what he's talking about. So we can go a little further with that. Flying Crocodile says, you know that they are attempting regime change in Lebanon right now. You know what they're attempting? Right there in Lebanon, to my understanding and to what I've watched, they are attempting to buy time in a section of time where they don't have it. Everything is collapsing. The economy is collapsing. The political stature is collapsing. The military is in disarray and it's collapsing. So what they're looking to do is get space to breathe. And what they want to do is draw Iran completely into this, so that America could bring the full wrath of its military on it. And listen, America might be in a weakened state, but she still can put it down, baby. You can believe that. She still can get it down militarily. But Iran can also. And when this war breaks out regionally, because it's going to go regional, as I continue to tell you all, this will be the breaking point for American and British domination in West Asia. They will limp out of West Asia, never to return as a power again. Iran will be devastated now, but the power of the empire will be broken. And this will be the spark that ignites China to retake Chinese Taipei, because the empire will be weakened to such a degree. Iran is going to give America everything she can stand and then some. I'm not saying that Iran is going to win. I'm not saying that she's going to lose. Listen to what I'm saying. That when this goes, Iran is going to give her everything that she wanted and then some. They have been preparing for this for decades. They have been preparing for this for decades. And a source close to me told me that Iran has some Su-35s, some MiG-29s, and along with their upgraded Tomcats, you know, that the United States supplied to the Shah, the upgraded Tomcats, This is a formidable Air Force with that. And along with the air defense systems that Iran indigenously produces, and with the ones provided by China and Russia. And don't forget about those CO2 missiles, those CO8 missiles, I think 802, and those hypersonic missiles, and those shorter ship missiles. It's going to be something else. I predict not one, but at least 2 carrier groups being sunk. Come back when it happens now. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, okay? Come back when it happens. This thing is going, because a lot of you don't realize, I listen to all these pundits, but none of them or any of them ever tell you guys what is all this about. It's about the empire has to continue to fight. It has to continue to find a victim, a prey, so that it can continue to live. This is a vampire system, and vampires need blood from hosts. And without that, the vampire shrivels up and dies. This is what we're looking at in the economy, the political system, and the military. And they understand that time is not on their side. That is why their irrational policies are rational in their mind, but only rational to irrational people. Because they're fighting like hell to maintain that which they've dominated in and that which they've benefited in, and that is that rules-based international order, which is dying a natural death. Because it was not beneficial to the population of the planet Earth. It was only beneficial to a few. When is enough enough? People are talking about Zuckerberg, $200 and some billion. When is that enough? See, the West, they put your worth in wealth. My estimated net worth is this and this. They don't talk about spirituality, morality, ethics, and all of that stuff. They put everything in material things. And so God is taking away all of that. Since you love that materialism so much, he's going to take it away from you. Come down and sit down in the dust. There are no more to be called tender or delicate. There is no throne for thee. That's talking about American Britain. The whole world gravitated towards them because they, in the eyes of the world, they had been trained to believe that way of living, that way of governance, that way of politics, that way of thinking was the best way. And now we're looking and the empire has no clothes on it. And we're finding that the empire is not as fine as we thought she was. The empire is overweight, overworked, disgusted. All right? That's what we're watching. The exposure of the American empire. The collapse of the Western world. And that's why I tell you, it's a time for you to be very thankful to God to let you see the days that prophets and apostles wish that they could live to see one. They wish that they could live to see just one of the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Our whole lives have been in that. And we're watching the collapse of an entire world order. And some of you are mad and saying, well, the country is collapsing. My question to you is this. Is it worthy to live? Is this order worthy to live? Look at where we are under the leadership of Britain, Germany, France, the United States, and colonial powers. We're on the threshold of thermonuclear annihilation. So have they proven themselves worthy to lead the world? Why won't anybody ask those questions? America must lead. The West must lead. Lead us where? Into the abyss of nothing? I'm asking. Into the abyss of nothing. If this was a corporation and the people were to do an in-depth investigation, they would fire everybody from Washington, D.C. to Brussels to London because of the state, the dire state of the corporation. So why is it such different when you're talking about it as a nation, as a government, as an empire? Shouldn't they be removed? Because they've shown time and time again that they cannot produce anything outside of the circle of the rules-based order, which has not been beneficial to the population of the planet Earth. Huh? Listen what the Flying Crocodile says. Germany, the West's industrial powerhouse, is shriveling. Germany was the second largest Western economy in the world. I was looking at, I got it in my emails. I saved it. I believe it was a company that they had been in business since the 1300s or the 1400s. Was forced to shut down. I'm telling you, was forced to shut its doors because it could no longer afford to business of the on Russian oil. And Volkswagen, the cream of the crop in German ingenuity, has been forced to contemplate closing their doors in Germany and only producing product in China. This is the collapse of power. This is the collapse of an entire world. Listen to me good. Let me show you how you collapse something, okay? We've seen America try to collapse countries through war. Look what they've done to Russia. They tried to collapse it through war. When war wasn't enough, what did they do? They tried to collapse it through political pressure. When political pressure wasn't enough, they went all out and tried to go and collapse the economy. When common sense tells you that if you want to collapse the state, you collapse the money. They did it all backwards because they were enraged that Russia would dare stand up and be an independent nation. So Russia was able to get its economic and political ducks in a row to withstand the onslaught of the American juggernaut. We're watching the complete fall of an entire world. This is not just America. This is not just Britain. This is an idea. An idea that these people are exceptional. An idea that this nation is the beacon of light to the world. An idea that the West must govern, dominate, and dictate to everything and everybody. That idea has fulfilled its mission. And now it is dying a natural death. And the people who benefited and promoted it now fighting like hell to try to maintain it, even when it has no bearing, no grip on what's coming into being. That's what you call desperation. That's what you call desperation. Mr. Clean Ali, shout out. Hey, everybody check him out. He has a movement. And I'll say this. In the black community, he has a movement called the Man Up Movement. This guy has impeccable character right here. I'm telling you this. And what he's doing is calling for accountability. And he has shirts and everything where he's trying to raise money to impact different communities to force you to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. This guy has impeccable, I'm talking about impeccable ethics and morals. I'm speaking up for this guy right here. You guys need to check him out, Mr. Clean Ali. Check him out. Put your link in the chat to where they can check out your products and stuff. Put your link in the chat. Let's see. Let's go. Diane O'Neill says Putin was talking of the empires as we know of them for the last 500 years. Yeah, I'm telling you, the empires. Listen, they have not only have they proven that they are not the right people at the right time to govern the world, to bring in something more just, more fair. They have proven just the opposite. That if you put them in power, they will exploit the people. They will rob the people. They will turn the people against each other to the benefit of them. So you have to listen. If the system is corrupt and the government is corrupt, if you change governments and leave the system, guess what happens? The system overwhelms the people that comes in. Isn't that what happened? Obama comes in with all of this hope and change, right? What happened? What hope? The hope died, and the only thing that changed was his perspective on things. And he just went along to get along, right? And the same with everybody else once they get into the system. So that means the system itself must be uprooted. Because systems don't just spring up. They come out of the mind of people. And these people who push this system, they have to be uprooted, or else there can never be peace. There can never be justice. And justice and peace is the ultimate and the eventual working out of judgment. So let's go a little further. Oh man, I've had you guys on for, man, Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't even know this, everybody. I wanna apologize. When we talking and we kicking it, oh my God. I didn't even think about how long we've been here. I want to show you something before we go though. All right. Let me see. Where is it at? So now I want you to understand. I've been telling you guys this for the longest. That we're approaching a storm. And America is going at it the same way that she's always gone at it. Is that when things get bad economically, when things get bad politically, I still have my military. And if I can cause war, it'll give my military industrial complex, it'll get it kick-started, and then we'll be able to keep certain things afloat. But they don't realize that by doing that, you're antagonizing the rest of the world who would help you. But by antagonizing them, all of them are plotting behind closed doors for your fall, your downfall. And now look where we are today. Turkey is reaching for the BRICS now, right? Right? Turkey is reaching for the BRICS now. Turkey wants to become a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Do you understand the strategic shift that would take place if Turkey were to become a member of the BRICS? Do you understand the global earthquake that would cause if it became a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? I'm pretty sure America understands that this would be a life-changing event because of its strategic location and its influence in what they call West Asia or the Middle East, right, and the Caucasus. Man, it's so much going on that you don't realize the world is falling. Let me read something to you all. If there is something that you really need to buy, you might want to go get it now because it might not be available later. The International Longshoremen's Association port workers are on the verge of initiating a strike. We know that they called off the strike. It says, which would shut down ports all over the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. And if that strike lasts long enough, it will throw U.S. supply chains into a state of complete and utter chaos. Needless to say, this could have a huge impact on the upcoming elections. If store shelves are quite bare in early November, millions of Americans will be in a very bad mood when they go to vote. Stop right there. Now, my co-host who comes on from time to time is a longshoreman, Rashid. And he had already been warning me of the stuff, of what was taking place behind closed doors. All right. Now, just imagine the ramification of that happening. We know that there was some kind of deal, or I believe it was some threats behind closed doors by the government that stopped this from happening for a few weeks to negotiate. But anyway, we look at that and we see the ramifications of what could possibly take place with store shelves becoming empty and stuff, right? I'm going to read a little bit more of that, then I'm going to give you something to think on before we close out, okay? Because this is very important as we watch the wars take place, as we watch Asia and the Asian nations stand in the middle of a Western manufactured crisis on knife's edge. So I want you to bear with me for a second. If it happens, the strike will begin on Tuesday. This is the first time that we have seen a strike of this nature in nearly 50 years. Thousands of longshoremen at ports from New England to Texas are set to strike early Tuesday in the first walkout of its kind in almost a half century, freezing commercial shipping on a massive scale and disrupting the national economy weeks before the presidential election. We already have established that something was done behind closed doors to stop this, but I need to read a little bit of this because it's something to do with what's going to happen soon, okay? It says, a strike would be the biggest disruption to the flow of goods in and out of the country since the height of the pandemic. Even a short-lived work stoppage would snarl shipping, it says snarl shipping and create havoc in supply chains for weeks. Cargo ranging from cars to electronics, from food to furniture would be stuck on ships offshore. Each day a strike lasts could cost the U.S. economy up to $1 billion, according to analysts. Now, why did I read that before we go? You see the ramifications of a strike in the United States? and how that could not only disrupt the economy, but collapse it. What do you think it will happen if America continues to antagonize China? Where do you think these goods are coming from? I'm asking. They're coming from China or a subsidiary of China. And if they're coming from China or a subsidiary of China, if you reposition your troops, your weapons, your warplanes, your missiles to the Asia Pacific to try to stoke tensions with China, the first thing that happens is an embargo. China embargoes the United States. That means that ships will be offshore with nothing in them. Within 2 weeks, the store shelves would be empty. Do you understand the ramifications of that? That means businesses close down. That means massive unemployment. That means bankruptcy. That means faltering on your debt that you owe banks. That means shipping, be it train cargo ships, cargo planes, what? Or 18-wheelers, going belly up because they have no merchandise to move, which means more bankruptcies, which means more unemployment, which means more debt on the backs of the bank, which means what? A total collapse of the banking industry. So if you have a total collapse of a banking industry, you have massive unemployment, massive bankruptcy. You are not a producer of weapons or any major materials. You are not a producing economy anymore. You are a service economy. What do you think the ramifications of a Chinese embargo on America with goods, and then the pulling out of $1.2 trillion in debt that the U.S. owes the United States? And if she neglects to pay the debt, the people will then have flashbacks of how the West stole Russia's money and refused to give it back. So now you have created a stampede out of the dollar. And on the back of that, you're dealing with an economic meltdown. And you have troops deployed thousands of miles away without the financing to re-up on gas, to re-up on maintenance, to re-up on anything. That is a calamity the size which nobody can fathom. What it is, in the eyes of the world, whether you want to believe it or not, is a divine decree for the fall of America. Thank you all for listening to the most powerful platform for anywhere on God's green earth. Excuse me, somebody's coming in my room for a second. Come on, bring it right here. Right there. Yeah. Okay. The new lighting. I got some new lighting and stuff. So for my office area, we moved this out of my office area because we're doing some stuff in my office area. I wanted to tell you guys that we got lighting, we got shelving, we got 2 dual computers, 2 of them. So that's 4 screens plus the laptop. We got all of that about to be put up for you all. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. And remember to do upright by others, not because people are watching, but because it's the right thing to do. Because even when no one's watching, Almighty God has his eyes on you. Remember that. Don't fear no man, fear God, the supreme man, okay? On that note, know that I love you more than life. But the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. But above all things, stay righteous. And remember to join us tomorrow at noon Central Time. We'll have Scott of Calibrated on the platform. So join us, show up and show out. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We're out of here. Peace. Peace. Ha, ha, ha.